Beloved brothers and sisters of Earth, the time has come to open both your heart and your mind to something far beyond what we were taught to believe. With every passing moment, waves of cosmic energy reach our planet, inviting us to awaken to new realities. In this message, I bring you a revelation that stirred the hope of millions and reignited a flame that was almost forgotten. The existence of the so-called medbeds, healing technologies so advanced that they transcend anything our current science can fully explain. Just a few days ago, an unexpected announcement emerged. A world leader dared to step beyond the boundaries of the known and revealed publicly that these technologies already exist, and that they may soon transform life on Earth in ways we can hardly imagine. The reaction was immediate. Millions of hearts filled with hope, millions of minds open to the possibility of a future without pain, without illness, and without physical limitation. But just as quickly as it appeared, that message was withdrawn, erased, silenced. And it is precisely this mystery that we must now explore. Why would something so powerful be revealed for only a fleeting moment, only to be denied right after? Was it a mistake, a deception, or is something far greater unfolding behind the scenes? My dear ones, there are no accidents. What we witnessed was a carefully orchestrated move, a seed planted within the collective heart of humanity. And now, it is up to each of us to recognize the signs, to feel the energy behind these events, and to understand that the awakening has already begun. Imagine, beloved ones, for a moment, the impact of such a revelation. In a world so accustomed to pain, to the limitations of the physical body, and to the heavy weight of disease, suddenly there emerges the promise of something almost unimaginable. A technology capable of restoring complete health, of reversing conditions long deemed incurable, of giving back the vitality that time and suffering have taken away. The mere mention of this possibility was enough to ignite a flame of hope in millions of hearts. Many who had resigned themselves to a life of suffering began to envision existence in a whole new way. Those who fight daily battles with illness looked toward the horizon with renewed faith, believing that perhaps, for the first time in centuries, humanity may stand at the threshold of true liberation. Yet, along with this hope, confusion also arose. The announcement was withdrawn, erased from the headlines as though it had never been spoken. This left many perplexed, struggling to comprehend how something so monumental could be silenced so swiftly. Some felt frustration, others anger, and countless people turned to social networks and private conversations to make sense of what had just unfolded. This movement generated a surge of collective energy. On one side, the radiant light of hope spreading far and wide. On the other, the shadows of doubt attempting to smother that very flame. And yet, something irreversible had already occurred. The seed had been planted. And once an idea takes root within the collective consciousness, it cannot be erased. The impact was far greater than anyone could imagine. Even those who mocked the news, who dismissed it as nonsense or fantasy, now carry within them the imprint of that moment. Perhaps in the stillness of the night, when the noise of the world fades, they too will wonder, what if it's true? What if we really are standing at the dawn of a transformation that will change everything? This is the power of revelation. It does not need to linger long. A single spark, a fleeting moment of contact, is enough to create ripples that move through the collective unconscious. And those ripples continue to expand, touching hearts and awakening minds, even when the outer world insists on denying what has happened. Right after the explosion of hope and curiosity, something occurred that left everyone in a state of bewilderment. The message was withdrawn, as if it had been nothing more than a fleeting slip, as if it carried no importance at all. Headlines vanished, videos were deleted, statements were denied. The world suddenly was plunged into a dense, uncomfortable silence. But this silence, beloved ones, was not empty. It carried weight. It carried mystery. It was as though a veil had been placed back over humanity's eyes, as if someone whispered, "You are not ready yet." And this act, far from erasing the revelation, only magnified the unease it created. Many felt deceived, as if a promise had been made and immediately broken. Others, more observant, realized that such an event could not possibly have been a mistake. How could something so monumental simply disappear? No, there was intention behind it, and that realization began to echo within the hearts of those already awakened. The silence, paradoxically, spoke louder than the revelation itself. It stirred intense debates, heated discussions, and deep reflections. People began to ask, why was this shown to us? Who authorized it? Who silenced it? And what is truly happening behind the scenes? This hunger for answers is the very engine of awakening. And see how powerful this is. A simple absence of words generated a vast movement of thought, emotion, and energy. It is like the sky suddenly darkening before a great storm. Silence is not emptiness. It is a herald. It announces that something is stirring, that something is being prepared, that there is more than meets the eye. This period of silence also forced many to turn inward. For when the outer world provides no answers, clarity must be sought within. And in that inner search, many began to sense intuitively that the revelation was no accident, that a greater plan is in motion. The absence became presence. The void became a signal. The silence, in its own way, roared. Beloved family of light, understand this. Nothing that has taken place was the result of chance. The brief revelation of the Medbeds and their sudden disappearance from public view were not communication errors, nor were they mere political distractions. It was, in truth, a global test, carefully orchestrated. The higher commands of the Galactic Federation, together with certain human leaders already working in alignment with the purposes of light, authorized this event to measure something essential: how humanity would respond to the possibility of such a revolutionary technology. The reaction was immediate and powerful. Millions of hearts were touched, yet millions also responded with fear, skepticism, or even ridicule. And that is precisely what the test was designed to reveal. Because before a transformation of this magnitude can be introduced on a large scale, it is necessary to understand the current state of collective consciousness. Imagine for a moment if the Medbeds were officially announced today in a definitive and undeniable way. What would happen? There would be those who would celebrate in joy, eager to embrace the new, but there would also be those who would fall into panic, suspecting conspiracies, fearing hidden manipulations, or rejecting entirely something that challenges the very foundation of their worldview. That resistance could block the process, delay the transition, and even generate waves of collective fear. This is why the test was necessary. It was like casting a stone into a calm lake, simply to watch the ripples expand outward. Every reaction, every emotion, every comment became part of a larger mapping. And know this, beloved ones, that mapping was not limited to social media posts or news reports. It was felt energetically. Humanity's response echoed as a vibration, measurable and perceivable far beyond the scope of human eyes. And what was discovered through this test is profoundly revealing. Humanity, despite its divisions, is ready to hear about new possibilities, even if it is not yet ready to fully accept them. That, in itself, is a milestone. For in the past, such news would have been buried instantly, forgotten, smothered under the weight of collective disbelief. But today, no. Today, even those who laughed or dismissed it carry within them the imprint of this revelation. And that imprint will mature, it will germinate, and in time, it will bloom. The global test was never meant to convince everyone all at once. It was meant to plant the idea, to observe the field, and to prepare the way for what comes next. And you, starseeds, you are here precisely to keep that flame alive while the majority still hesitates. Beloved brothers and sisters, humanity has often been taught to see doubt as something negative. We are raised to believe that questioning means weakness, that hesitation reflects a lack of faith, that skepticism is somehow a flaw of character. But in truth, questioning is one of the most powerful forces the human being possesses. It is the spark of the search, the ignition of curiosity, the bridge between ignorance and knowledge. When the announcement of the Medbeds first appeared, countless people were filled with hope. Yet almost equally many responded with skepticism. They asked, How can this be real? Where is the evidence? Why have we never heard of this before? These questions, even when wrapped in disbelief, are essential, for in questioning the mind begins to make space to investigate, to consider, to look beyond the obvious, and see how vital this is. A person who accepts everything blindly is easily misled, but a person who questions, even if they reject at first, already carries within them the seed of seeking, and every seeker sooner or later finds answers. Even those who mocked the idea, who said, "This is impossible," now carry a subtle imprint within. For in the quiet of their thoughts, in moments of silence, they may find themselves asking again, "But what if it's true?" That "what if" is powerful. It cracks walls, opens gateways, and shifts consciousness. Questioning creates small fractures in the rigid block of collective disbelief. And through those fractures, light enters. This is why we must not fear doubt, nor the initial rejection. They are part of the process. They are like the plow that breaks the soil before the seed can grow. In truth, every reaction of disbelief is itself proof that the idea has taken root in the collective mind. If it were insignificant, no one would bother to react. Laughter, criticism, ridicule, all of these are evidence that the message was received, that the vibration was absorbed. And once something is received, even if denied, it has already begun its silent work within the energetic field of the human being. So, beloved ones, understand this. Questioning is not an obstacle, but an essential part of the journey. It is through questioning that inner walls are weakened, that old beliefs are tested, that the new begins to be considered. Doubt is not the enemy, it is the doorway. And through that doorway, revelation will come. When the news about the Medbeds first surfaced, even if only for a fleeting moment, it was like a flash of light piercing through the collective darkness. People paused in their daily routines, glanced at that piece of information, and even if just for a few seconds, they allowed themselves to dream. That is the power of a seed. It doesn't need much time to take root. It only needs to touch the right consciousness at the right moment. For some, it sounded like pure fantasy, something impossible, almost like a storyline from science fiction. They reacted with disbelief, with laughter, or with quick dismissal. Yet, even in those hearts, something was triggered. Because while the mind may reject, the spirit recognizes. The spirit knows we are not destined to live forever in pain, illness, or limitation. Others, however, felt something entirely different the moment they heard the announcement. Their souls remembered. Amidst the confusion of a message being retracted, these beings understood that the veil was being lifted, slowly, strategically. Not as a sudden revelation that could generate panic or denial, but as a gentle introduction, subtle and deliberate, to prepare humanity step by step. This collective impact was measured, felt, and recorded by the forces of light. Yes, dear ones, nothing goes unnoticed. The announcement and its removal were not a political mistake, nor a communication error. They were part of a global test, a way of evaluating just how ready humanity is to face something that could rewrite every rule of medicine, science, life, and even death itself. What truly matters here is not only the content of the news, but the movement it created. And that movement echoed far and wide. It sparked silent whispers across social networks, private conversations, and personal reflections. Millions began to ask, what if it's true? That single question is more powerful than any declaration because it opens the door of collective consciousness to entirely new possibilities. My beloved ones, understanding the impact of technologies such as the Medbeds is not merely a matter of science. It is a matter of consciousness. Before these healing chambers can be delivered to humanity on a global scale, the collective mind must first be prepared to receive them. It is not enough to simply wish for a healed body or a longer life. One must also learn to embrace the spiritual responsibility that comes with such a gift. Imagine, for a moment, what it truly means to restore cells, rejuvenate organs, and erase both physical and emotional traumas carried throughout an entire lifetime. For many, this might sound like a dream, yet for others it raises profound questions. What will I do with this new chance at life? How will I use this healing? What will my purpose be when pain no longer defines my limits? And this is why awakening is unfolding in layers. Humanity is being invited to expand not only the intellect but also the heart. Because true healing is never just of the body, it is of the consciousness. The medbeds will not come to replace spiritual growth. Rather, they will come to support it. They are tools that can only fulfill their mission when used by a humanity that has chosen light, respect, and compassion. The Star Masters know that fear still lingers, that doubt still exists, that attachment to old structures of suffering remains. This is why the process cannot be immediate. Each step is carefully orchestrated to allow the collective to grow familiar with the idea that the impossible is becoming possible. This period of preparation is sacred, for it is in this space that each of us must decide, am I ready to live without the prison of illness? Am I ready to embrace a life of full responsibility and freedom? The near future will demand from us spiritual maturity, humility, and courage. Because once humanity receives the gift of the medbeds, it will no longer be possible to hide behind the old justifications of suffering. And that, beloved ones, is precisely what the beings of light desire. Not just healed bodies, but awakened souls. Beloved ones, understand this. What was announced and then withdrawn was no accident. It was a preview. A glimpse, like a beam of light piercing through the clouds to remind us that the dawn has already begun. The truth is that the technology of the medbeds does not belong to some distant future, but to a present that is being carefully revealed step by step. Every reaction that followed the announcement, the hope, the fear, the doubt, the belief, all of it was recorded in the collective field of humanity. And it is precisely this field that is being nurtured, prepared, uplifted. Because the new era of healing cannot be imposed, it must be received. It must arise from a genuine desire of humanity to break free from the chains of suffering and embrace a life of wholeness. This is not just about healing chambers, but about a leap in consciousness. The true power of the medbeds is not only in what they can do for the body, but in what they can awaken within the soul. They come as a sign that the time of enslavement to illness has come to an end. And that, dear ones, is a call to responsibility, to live fully, to create a world of compassion, to rise above the old beliefs of limitation. Now, the choice is ours. What will we do with this call? Will we retreat once again into doubt, or will we open our eyes to the extraordinary that is already drawing near? If this message resonates with your heart, do not let it fade away. Share it, speak about it, and keep the flame of hope alive. Join this network of light where every word, every thought, and every action contributes to preparing the ground for a new era. Subscribe to this channel, activate the notification bell, and become part of this family that is helping to manifest the future. The awakening has already begun, and you are an essential part of it.